Hello, this is Toshio Okada. Tonight, we explore the true nature of ghosts. Okada's conclusion: ghosts do not exist physically. However, psychologically, they truly do exist. Astonishingly, in 19th century Britain, those who most seriously tried to catch ghosts were the era's leading scientists. Alfred Wallace, co-discoverer of evolution, alongside Darwin, was one of them. After interviewing primitive tribes worldwide, Wallace concluded, more than civilization, primitive society is more moral. Science undermines faith. Why did the scientist Wallace dive into spiritualist research? There lies the key to ghosts' true nature. Today's rationalized adults no longer fear ghosts. But Stephen King's Salem's Lot, once again, revives psychological ghosts. The essence of this story Okada calls King's scariest novel. Enjoy it to the end.
This is the Toshio Okada YouTube channel. Tonight is a Halloween special. Let's talk about ghosts. It's a 40-minute video, so let me give you a quick rundown. First, we'll talk about the movie Ghostbusters. Using a figurine, I'd like to discuss the device that captures ghosts. Rather than the movie itself, it's about the ghost capturing equipment. Around the 5-minute mark, the 19th century British ghost frenzy. The scientists who literally tried to catch ghosts. I'll tell you about the chaos of the real Ghostbusters. Around the 15-minute mark, the scientists who co-discovered evolution with Darwin got more and more obsessed with ghost research. Around the 25-minute mark, a hidden gem by Stephen King. We'll discuss his novel Salem's Lot. It's the same Stephen King who wrote the mega-hit horror IT, but the truly scariest Stephen King story. I think it's Salem's Lot. Listen to that story. Now, today's ghost story starts. First topic, back to Ghostbusters. This is called the proton pack. They wear it on their backs. Proton means a positively charged particle. From this gun, a proton beam, a positron beam, comes out and captures ghosts. If you've seen the movie, you'll recognize the ghost-catching scenes. The beam coming out is like a whip, or a rope, that wraps around the ghost's body. It wraps around and captures it. The reason is, the proton beam, the protons, are particles with a positive charge, opposite to electrons. Protons carry a positive charge, that's what protons are. So why does this positively charged beam catch ghosts? Because ghosts are believed to carry a negative charge. When ghosts appear, the surrounding air is said to ionize, and they say negative ions increase. And that's exactly why even the Ghostbuster backpack. This little locker that came with the figurine. You remember this, right? Do you all remember? This figurine is amazingly well made. For example, see these gloves attached? These gloves are flat. What's that for? They tuck into the belt at the waist. Because in the movie, when they take off the black gloves, they tuck them into their waist. These are gloves for that scene. Anyway, this is the ghost capture device. When you step on this foot pedal, this part pops open, and the ghost gets sucked inside. Because the inside is positively charged. And the ghost itself carries a negative charge. Since the ghost carries a negative charge, and the positively charged ghost pack opens, the ghost gets sucked in. That's the way. Ghostbusters depicts ghost capture in the movie. And by the way, this proton beam is a familiar element in Miyazaki anime. In Future Boy Conan, they use a supermagnetic weapon vastly more powerful than nukes. And the giant aircraft Gigant that appears at the end is also equipped with a proton beam. It caused a catastrophe in the world of Future Boy Conan. So severe the Earth's axis tilted, continents sank. In Nausicaa, the proton beam shoots from the giant warrior's mouth, you know it. In Castle in the Sky Laputa, the so-called arrow of Indra. The beam cannon that shoots down from Laputa's bottom is also a proton beam. I've said this many times, but the proton beam, the principle isn't really clear. Things like the charged particle cannon in Gundam. We know the principle and roughly how to make it. But proton beams just kind of mean shoots up positive particles. Why positive particles have destructive power isn't clear, but Miyazaki, he prefers things that aren't well understood. If you put something we currently understand into anime, it gets dated quickly. So fate, proton beams, things that are one or two steps beyond our understanding. But with technical sounding names, Miyazaki loves to use those. Even in Britain, capturing ghosts with such beam cannons. Or building positive charged containment boxes against negative ions. These positive charged trap boxes for capturing ghosts. Scientists who seriously researched this were rare, almost none. But scientists who studied paranormal phenomena scientifically, there were a lot of them. I'll explain why. The reference is the same book, I bought it but haven't finished reading. Many people quit halfway. The scientists who try to catch ghosts. It's about late 19th century Britain. In late 19th century Britain, science and religion were in confusion, not opposed. If they were opposed, that would actually be easier to understand. Superstitious religion versus logical science, clearly good versus evil. But that's not it, the relationship was confused. Originally, science was about discovering nature's laws to prove God's wisdom, to prove God's existence. So Mendel and others old-time scientists were often pastors or priests. So, the natural science professors at Cambridge or Oxford in 19th century Britain. That was when the word scientist was first coined. Until then, they used man of science or other terms. Various phrases. Since people who do art are artists, and we do science, we should be scientists, that's how it started. Scientist. This was the era when science as a race and profession was first born. Scientists of that era. This was the era when science as a race and profession was first born. All the top professors at Cambridge and Oxford were also clergy of the Church of England, Britain's unique religion. In other words, they were priests and bishop-class clergy. Incredible era when university professors equaled clergy. So doubting God's existence was simply unthinkable. Seriously. Therefore, in 1859, mid-19th century, when Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, Darwinism, evolutionary theory, appeared, there was huge chaos. First, Darwin himself published it, literally betting his university position on it, and quoting it, or rather anyone who read it. Couldn't help but accept it because of the massive evidence and proof. So the British scientific establishment of the time couldn't even deny Darwin's theory. All they could do was ignore it, or quote it briefly. And even when quoting, the more famous the scientist or professor, the more they'd condition their name be kept anonymous. Look, I'm anonymous, but you can use it this way. It's great proof for this part. Even today, the names of those professors and scientists couldn't deny Darwin's evolution. Some quoted but unnamed people, we still don't know who they were. Concerning Darwin's evolution, they treated it very cautiously, defensively. Actually, that humans descend from apes, Darwin never wrote that. Darwin was also a university professor, and he knew how dangerous that would be. What Origin of Species said was, all organisms evolve. Surviving organisms are bound by survival of the fittest, and they leave the next generation. This principle a scientist can't compromise on. But not a single line says humans evolved from apes. However, scientists at the time had lots of data on apes, found in various countries, orangutans, chimpanzees, and so on. So any scientist of the era reading it would think, humans descend from apes. If only the scientists had stayed quiet, there'd have been no chaos. But the scientists, they all noticed it, like critics watching Shin Godzilla. They couldn't help saying it. So, are humans descended from apes, or? Darwin says humans came from apes. Outrageous. They kept saying, but he never wrote it. He didn't write it, but they figured it out. And everyone wrote about it loudly, so humans descend from apes. Leaked out to the general public. If we evolved from animals, the moral basis only humans created by God weakens. It disappears. Saying moral basis sounds odd, but why are humans good? Why do humans abandon their own desires in the opposite direction of utilitarianism? No, why do they take altruistic actions, beneficial to others? Why do they act morally? All these grounds, without modern social sciences as we have today. Humans as God's special creation, different from beasts. That whole religious worldview collapsed. Then, someone refuted Darwin. Surprisingly, it was the co-author of Darwin's Origin of Species. Origin of Species had two authors. One was Charles Darwin, who wrote almost all of it. But Darwin got cold feet about what he'd written, saying, I've written it, I'm satisfied just by that. He didn't even want to publish it. But anxious, he showed it to many people, asked them to check. The readers were scientists. They all said, wow, exactly right. Are you publishing this? Each time he showed it, getting minor counter-arguments, Darwin kept improving the paper. The paper got better and better, but with no prospects of release. He met a man named Alfred Wallace. Alfred Wallace was also a scientist. Like Darwin, Wallace had traveled the world, thinking nearly the same thoughts. But unlike Origin of Species, his work wasn't a unified paper. And Origin of Species was a huge shock. Wallace was deeply shocked, and at the same time, accepted Origin's claim that organisms evolve. That this is natural selection, random evolution. He started gradually citing it in his own papers. Seeing this, Charles Darwin panicked. Wait a minute, at this rate, evolution will be credited to Wallace, that's bad. I'll be scooped. Darwin said, right, I'm publishing. Then Wallace said, hold on, I've Already published several related papers, make me a co-author? Okay, fine. Darwin, I get 9, you get 1. They roughly agreed on this split, and with Alfred Wallace as co-author, Origin of Species was published. And Wallace, while affirming evolution, it was his own work too. His own paper too. While affirming, said, I can't say the human brain is purely the product of evolution. Here he cleverly slipped the concept of God back in. Evolution is correct. Organisms gradually evolved from inferior creatures into their current forms. However, the human brain is evolving. But for the brain alone, no intermediate stages have been found. If we say the human brain is a product of evolution, the intermediate stages, that's still called the missing link problem. Mankind suddenly arrived at near modern human intelligence. Whether modern Homo sapiens, or earlier Australopithecus, or Cro-Magnons, they suddenly appeared at that stage. Intermediate stages haven't been found, that's true. But like dinosaurs to birds, with just one intermediate, Archaeopteryx, they jumped. All at once. Now, by modern science, an intelligence jump from beasts to humans seems almost impossible. I can sort of understand that view. But in mid-19th century Britain, Wallace has claimed that if humans suddenly evolved into the human brain, it'd be strange not to find intermediate forms was somewhat believable. Somewhat believable. It was believed. So Wallace said God's existence is here. After that, Alfred Wallace, the co-author of Darwin's Origin of Species, got obsessed with spiritualist research. Like Darwin, Wallace traveled the world in the mid-19th century. While Darwin sought biology, looking at all kinds of organisms, Wallace sought sociology, looking at various peoples, extensively investigating uncivilized tribes worldwide. Mid-19th century London was incredibly degraded. Lots of violence, lots of murders, morality completely fallen apart. Wallace, while interviewing primitive tribes worldwide, the pinnacle of advanced civilization, supposedly the world's most civilized center, London, even there it was that bad. So primitive tribes must be worse, more superstitious. Engaging in cannibalism, he expected horrible places. But nowhere in the world was worse than London. Every tribe had its own pride, was surprisingly clean, and didn't really kill each other, that's what he saw. So, primitive society might be more civilized. Wallace concluded. As a result, science undermines faith. The existence of science itself shakes faith, ruins it. Better to say ruins. He concluded science threatens to ruin faith. Ethics and morality equal religion without those scientists would defeat civilization, cause its decline. Setting aside how that fits evolutionarily, by Wallace's argument, accepting evolution equals scientists fit morally and religiously. So accepting evolution accepts the message, be moral, be religious. For scientists, accepting evolution means scientists must become moral, religious, or civilization is defeated. So they're told, be moral, be religious. Conversely, not accepting evolution equals abandoning science and running to religion. In other words,
今度は科学者たちが研究するようになりました。で、科学者だからですね、当然実験するんです。
Either way, you have to embrace religion. That strange paradox existed in mid-19th century Britain. How post-war Japan should accept democracy, the U.S. security treaty, while being in the nuclear umbrella.
あれですね、それをですね、大ブームになったんですよ。
While wishing for nuclear abolition, upholding the 3 non-nuclear principles, saying we won't have soldiers, while having a self-defense force, starting nuclear power. Even Japanese 100 or 200 years from now won't understand what those Japanese were saying. Clear logical and intellectual contortion. But seen in historical context, of course, because atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but Japan developed afterward. Entering the U.S. nuclear umbrella was the most rational action. But still, doing things independently seemed best. Within various contexts, Japanese decisions exist as they are now. Same with the British scientific community. Evolution appeared. Scientists were shocked. After much chaos, they accepted evolution. Saying they accepted it, that's something we say 150 years later. British people of the time, viewed in historical context, had no choice but to head toward paranormal, spiritualist research. Especially the British scientific establishment. It's a paradox. Both those who accepted evolution and those who didn't all said, then let's value religion more? That strange paradox arose. Now, scientists started researching paranormal phenomena. Being scientists, they naturally experimented. So in late 19th century Britain, scientific experiments on paranormal equals seances. Gathering in a room, holding hands, now the spirit of so-and-so descends. It became a huge boom. How big a boom? Well, Charles Darwin had an older brother. His actual brother Erasmus Darwin. And he was probably the biggest fan of seances in Britain. Darwin was deeply troubled, his own brother getting hooked on seances. Famous in Britain, even quoting my brother. Darwin, in their sessions. Persuaded by his brother, Darwin himself almost got sucked into spiritualism research too. Because Darwin had a young daughter who died very young, the world of God. Meeting again in heaven, that was truly his emotional support. And while traveling the world, his wife also died, and he relied on the hope of meeting her again in heaven. But the more correct his origin of species was, the more it proved God doesn't exist. No heaven exists. He'd never see his daughter or wife again. So Darwin was deeply troubled. Anyway, seances. He almost decided to try, but on that day, he lied that he was sick, cancelled. Narrowly avoided it. Darwin didn't go that way. As someone in the comments noted, Sherlock Holmes author Conan Doyle got deeply addicted to seances and basically wasted the latter half of his life. Probably late 19th century British scientists didn't waste lives, but lots of them did spiritualism research. From this seance boom, scientists' affirmation of spirits became, you could say, proof of scientists' conscience. As I said before, the more civilization developed, science advanced, technology advanced, the more London became the world's most uncomfortable city. What made it so? Technological and scientific progress. But to prove they had a conscience, scientists themselves. This is the same as Japan today. To prove their own conscience, scientists oppose security treaties, oppose military force, becoming Tarigo-san types. What's that about? It's probably similar to that. The more of a scientist, the more excessive religious devotion. Having to claim spiritual belief to even survive ought to put it that way. But probably not forced verbally. More like or else I'm not okay, self-admonishment. So occult research in 19th century Britain, it became established knowledge. Common sense knowledge, essential general knowledge. The word ectoplasm was even invented by Charles Richet, a Nobel laureate in medicine and physiology. That's how serious. Occult research, spiritualist research, was for scientists at the time, both cutting edge and a matter of the soul. Researchers explain things using terms like spirits are ionized, and at poltergeist sites. The air becomes charged. You see ionization. That kind of explanation was common. So the Ghostbusters proton pack captures ghosts via positive particles. That's the logic. All this 19th century mid to late British science chaos. Spirits and paranormal phenomena being explained in scientific terms. That's where it came from. Cutting-edge electromagnetism. If we link it with electromagnetism, then logically, when spirits appear or things move, energy is required, right? But that energy, scientists, with their conservation of energy principle, can't say energy comes from nothing. So what then? They had to run with hypotheses involving still mysterious plasma, or electromagnetic phenomena. No. Because of all this, even today's occult shows feature people who look like scientists. During poltergeist phenomena, alongside video cameras, they always bring devices to measure air ionization. Ghostbusters shows this too. That's how it connects to today's proton pack. What should I do? There's one more story I want to tell. About 6 minutes left. It's about why Romero's zombies became popular. Romero's zombies, as I said before, are based on the end of the world. And vampires. Vampires, by the time Romero made his zombies, had become almost forgotten. 1950s. From the 40s to the 50s. A common motif in black and white horror films. Humans transforming into bats. Flying, drinking blood, coming back from the dead. All too absurd, too fake feeling. In civilized society, vampires were like, well, kappa for Japanese. There's the folktale aspect, kids find them scary, so we should preserve them. Ghosts must be preserved. But kind of like that. Adults don't believe in kappa. Vampires, nobody believed. So nobody feared them. What broke that was Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Let me talk about vampires too, since this is a horror special. Salem's Lot is published in 2 volumes by Shueisha Bunko, with a graveyard on the cover. Yes, King again. Indeed. I do Stephen King at least once a month. A small Maine town, Salem's Lot. A fictional town is the setting. The protagonist is a novelist named Ben Mears, a middle-aged man. He lived in Salem's Lot as a child, but had scary experiences there. Not just that. Left, became a struggling novelist with a few books published, fell into a slump. And to write a proper next novel, returns to his old hometown. Ben Mears returns to Salem's Lot and meets a slightly younger woman, well, still about 25, named Susan. Also introduced is Mark Petrie, a smart but unobtrusive boy. Mark Petrie at his transferred school was about to be bullied, but escaped using quick wit. He's a fairly relatable character. In Salem's Lot, these three characters are introduced. Rapid fire, magic lantern style at the start. The story itself begins with a real estate agent receiving a strange offer. Earlier I explained Levittown, the suburb where Marty from Back to the Future lived. From the late 1970s, in America, even cheaper housing than Levittown emerged. We call them trailer homes. In Independence Day and similar films, poor people are shown living in trailers. What are these? Trailer homes have far looser legal requirements than regular houses. No need to install fire control systems, insurance is much cheaper. Rather than buying a single house, you can buy a much larger, more luxurious trailer home far more cheaply. Plus, when you buy a trailer home, removing the tires from the start and placing it on brick or block foundations, several family members can comfortably live inside. Comfortably, well, it's not a house, maybe inconvenient. But with built-in car AC, with a generator, it's just as comfortable. So in Salem's Lot, the upcoming horror town's real estate agent was making a fortune selling these trailer homes. And these motor trailer homes, various Salem's Lot residents' lives are introduced. For example, a girl named Sandy, starting a newlywed life with her husband Roy. Still 17, dropped out of high school. Dropped out, originally a cheerleader, but pregnancy was discovered. Dating Roy. Sandy got pregnant, so she quit high school. She decided to leave school and have the baby at the wedding. Her belly was already big. She thought this would open her future. 6 months after the baby was born, Sandy felt her life had become hell. Baby cries nonstop, smears poop everywhere. When she tells her husband, he hits her. Her husband was a high school football star. But once he started working, he just played poker and drank with worthless friends. Barely worked at all. Is this what I'm doing? Did I give up my dream of being a model to live in a trailer home? Sandy's despair is shown. This is typical of modern poor American trailer home life. She hits the newborn baby, leaving bruises on the baby. And she has to figure out how to hide bruises on the baby from her husband Roy. Sandy spends every day thinking only about that. And in this Salem's Lot, strange events begin. The graveyard. The graveyard entrance, on the book's cover, is a steel fence. And at the steel fence, a dog belonging to a resident was killed and hung up. Why kill that dog? Why did it die? No one knows. What a horrible prank. Salem's Lot across America, lots of youth violence, but Salem's Lot is a country town. Young people don't do bad things. It was a peaceful town, they say. But there's a reason the dog was killed. The dog had a white spot on its forehead. Dogs with such white spots, in Western legend and folklore, are called the third eye. A dog with a white spot here is said to ward off evil. If you keep a dog with a white spot here, even if scary things try to enter the home, even if invisible evil things try to enter, the dog will bark and drive them away, that's what's said. The only dog in Salem's lot with such a white spot was killed and hung in the graveyard. But people have no idea why. The real estate agent gets an inquiry from Kurt Barlow Trading. They want to buy the building in the town center, formerly a laundromat. It will become Barlow Trading, an antique furniture store. But there are conditions. First, never tell anyone about this transaction. Second, sell the house for $1. Sell for $1, they refuse to pay more than $1, that's the condition. Third, all the buying and selling of that house, all paperwork has to be handled by that real estate agent. The agent, wait, that house is worth over $8,000. Why sell it for $1? Told he must sell for $1. The alternative offer is the property rights to land near the highway near Salem's lot. Near there a supermarket will be built soon. Subdivided as residential lots or commercial. Roughly worth $1.50 to $2 million. I'll give you this for free. In exchange, sell that house for $1. And one condition, don't ask why $1. The real estate agent feels deeply uneasy, wondering why $1. What's described in this book is something like horror's rules. When you do something, certain conditions must be met. Occult logic apparently has these. But the book just describes mysterious phenomena without explaining the rules. The agent, feeling strange, sells the store for $1. Then what happens? Months later, a huge package arrives from Europe. And moving this package to the basement is also part of your conditions. They hire drunkards to move the package into the basement at night. Absolutely never move it during the day. While moving it at night, one of the workers smells something strange. But anyway is afraid and doesn't know why he's afraid. At first, drinking beer was good, $100 just for this? Easy overtime for today, they said. So they carry the big box into the basement, and once moved, the two men can no longer joke at all, for no reason. They suddenly feel scared all over. Without any reason for the fear, they leave it in the basement and come back. Meanwhile, a priest named Father Donald Callahan is also depicted. Father Donald Callahan is in despair. Hidden from his fellow priests, hidden from his parishioners, believers. He drinks every night. A priest drinking is a no-no, but everyone knows. Callahan is a good priest, but he can't quit drinking. Blood vessels burst on his face from the alcohol, red-faced, and it doesn't heal. Drinking every day. The reason, at confession, where everyone comes to repent. He fights against the devil. He devoted his life to fighting alongside Christ at confession. His youthful resolve had no error, he believed. But what is the enemy of God in this town now? Not demons. Just mothers who hit babies. Husbands who hit wives, men who can't quit drinking, all those. The evil in this town is so shabby. If evil is shabby, God would smite those people. He must show his greatness. What he thought was the fight for God against the devil. This shabby battle? Feels like he's losing his faith in God. Father Callahan every night drinks while wondering, are the demons in this town really parents who hit children? Men who can't quit drinking. That's his state. Then finally, an incident occurs. This. I haven't even talked about a quarter yet. Mark Petrie, the smart boy I mentioned. His friend, the Glick brother, went missing in the woods. Only the older brother Danny Glick was found, younger brother never found. Found, but bloodless. Hospitalized just like that. Everyone says glad he's found, but he stays terribly pale. Something in his blood. Red blood cell count plummeting, strange. Strange, then one morning, the nurse looks, his complexion has gotten amazingly better. Vitamin B worked, the nurse thinks, relieved, but he's not breathing. Glick boy died right there. Once his complexion got great, he was already dead. From here, an extremely careful description of the Catholic funeral. This much. The Lord is the resurrection, death and dying, resurrection. Catholic funeral scenes repeating these, I'd never read such a thing. Catholic funeral sermons can be this horror-like, I was shocked. The Lord shall surely rise again, your blood and flesh become this, saying that. The one saying it is Father Donald Callahan from earlier. A man who's lost faith in God, desperately driving his heart. Delivering a proper sermon. A man who's lost faith in God, desperately driving his heart.